There we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Late Night Live podcast on Tuesday, the 25th of January, day 2 of the Love Tutoring Festival, the theme of which is the business of tutoring. Tonight, we have a 3-person panel as part of this podcast, and we will be discussing, podcast listeners won't be able to see what I've shared on screen, but I've shared a little intro slide to our 3 panelists this evening: Sarah, Logan, Miguel de Sousa, and Michael Gibben. So these are 3 dear friends of Qualified Tutor, and we are delighted to be bringing them here together. Previously, they have 3-way co-hosted the Business of Tutoring Hub, which was a real success earlier in 2021. And tonight we will be discussing the how and the why behind building community in education businesses, something that the 3 of these tutoring leaders we have here with us do incredibly well. So I will introduce a little background to these 3 speakers before we then dive into our first set of questions. So Michael is based in Toronto, and is a tutoring company owner who found that he could help others gain the knowledge that he gained the hard way. As a business coach for tutors, he gives excellent advice and guidance to small and medium-sized agencies. Michael has a very practical step-by-step approach, and this has helped hundreds of tutors and tutoring business owners plot their path to business success. That could be you this very evening. Sarah Logan is one half of Next Steps Tutors, alongside Elizabeth Fancourt, and Sarah is also a primary school teacher, or has also been a primary school teacher, and has over 18 years experience in the classroom. She's taught over 400 children online in the last year. I'm sure that number has grown since we penned these descriptions, tutoring both, she is nodding away, tutoring both one-to-one and in small groups. Sarah enjoys teaching maths, coding, and creative writing, and her students really are from all around the globe and have many different experiences of learning and life. So her adaptability, I guess, has been key to creating successful classrooms. In schools, Sarah has mentored both student teachers and NQTs, newly qualified teachers, and she's recently joined the Qualified Tutor team as a tutor coach and assessor, which we are delighted about. And last but not least, Miguel de Sousa manages Tutor2 Worcester, and his self-proclaimed objective, his words, not mine, is to get every child to excel in their education. I think there's a fantastic motto to live by. Tutor2 treat every student as an individual and care deeply and passionately about helping them reach their full academic potential. Miguel previously worked in hospitality for around 30 years and loved every minute of it by all accounts. But more than the food and the beautiful places, he loved developing the team that he worked with, which he's carried into his education work. If you'd like to know the number 1 item on his bucket list, it's learning to paraglide. And I believe Michael actually has a bit of experience in that. I won't go down that rabbit hole, we may get to that. But I won't start with that. A huge thank you to Nudge Education for sponsoring the entire festival, and of course to the profs for sponsoring day 2 at the Love Tutoring Festival. Today, right now, we are on the final event of that day. I have now spoken for about 5 minutes of this podcast, yes. Michael, Sarah, and Miguel, how are you doing this evening? Miguel, I'll start with you.
I'm doing great, actually. Today was quite a bit of a milestone. I don't know if you all remember that G.I. Jane movie with Demi Moore, where she joined army and no one believed that she was able to do it, and she stood in front of the mirror and she shaved her hair. So today was a Miguel shave his hair day. And it was why? Because the last 6 months have been quite interesting, because being an entrepreneur is not an easy task. And even when you come from corporate, where you got experience, you encounter things that dazzle you. And instead of me going down the hole of being frustrated and unhappy with how things are going, and nobody's fault really, it's just what it is. It's reality. I wanted to make a point of deciding today that I am resilient, and I'm not going to give up on this thing called entrepreneurism.
Well, what a wonderful way to lead into this conversation then. I'm also happy to see a fellow shaved-headed individual. So welcome, Miguel, to this crowd. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm really good. Miguel, you're looking really fresh today. It suits you. It looks good. I've had a fantastic day. I have been at the Love Tutoring Festival since about 9 o'clock this morning, with a few little interludes for a bit of tuition, and it's been fantastic. It's one of those mind-blowing days where I was really excited about today. You know how much I love my tuition business, the business of tuition. So today's been my day, and it's been really great.
Today is Sarah Logan's day, or anyone else who thought that it was their day. It's not. It's Sarah's. Wonderful. Michael, how are you? How are you this fine day?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, Ludo. Thanks. And Miguel looks great. No, I've been really good. It's been a day of coaching and reading, and I'm looking forward to the latter half of the Love Tutoring Festival too, and being here tonight with everybody for the podcast.
Absolutely wonderful. Michael has the special title, I believe, of being the only member of our panel to have previously appeared on the Qualified Tutor podcast. So next time, Sarah and Miguel, you can say that too. So we're going to kick things off here, if we haven't already, with some 60-second opening questions, just some real quick fire stuff. So fingers on buzzers, fingers on timers as well. The first question is, what does the word community mean to you? Sarah, we're going to start with you, please.
I think it's a common thread. It doesn't matter if it's small or if it's big, if it's a few people or if it's a lot of people, but there's a common thread that runs through it. And there's always a common thread. And sometimes it's harder to find, but you can always find a common thread between groups of people. That's what community is to me.
That's a wonderful start. Miguel, you're next, and you've actually got some of Sarah's extra 60 seconds there, because I think that was only about 40. So you've got 80 seconds, Miguel.
We have a Zulu word. I was born in South Africa. We have a Zulu word that I've tried to mention. A couple of people know this. It's Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means that I am because of you and you are because of me. So community has got the nuances of the beautiful and the romantic and the wonderful, but community is also a sense of survival. And communities exist because of survival. And if you don't share the values of a community, and if you don't engage within the community, then your survival gets diminished. Where if you do exactly that effort into your community, then not only are you looking after everyone else's back, but your back is also being looked after. So it's not only about the romantic and the beautiful, it's also about survival as a group of people.
Wonderful. I think the words Ubuntu, the meaning of Ubuntu runs very deeply through the business of Tutoring Hub, has done since the very, very early days. So we will be hearing more about that both this evening and later on in the festival, but put Friday, the 28th of January at 9 a.m. UK time in your diaries, because that will be the launch of the Specialist Tutor Hubs. Of course, the Business of Tutoring Hub is already launched. It's been running for around 6 months since the last festival, but we'll be hearing more about that. Michael, please.
Sure thing. So I feel for community, there's three pieces. I feel sharing, support, success. I feel those all interconnect. And I feel if you're sharing and you help others to share and bring them out, that authenticity, that vulnerability, that can really help to create connection, create trust, create community. and then supporting one another through the good times, the bad, and that can help to be a catalyst for success or rebirth or whatever the community is going through. So having those pillars, I feel, is really important towards creating community.
I think having that central goal, isn't it? I think the word pillars, Michael, is just the right word to use for that. Something that is unshakable and is a mainstay of the network or group that you're in. And I think, as we just mentioned, perhaps Ubuntu is that for the business of Tutoring Hub. But each one of you, as well as guests here, you have several communities. I think that's the beauty of the word community. It's not just one; it's made up of multiple communities for each individual. So, kind of drawing on that, and certainly not limiting yourself just to talking about the business of Tutoring Hub. What do you think? Let's reflect on the past year then, and your own successes, the three of you, in building community and communities. What would you say some of the lessons that you've learned have been? Sarah, again, we'll start with you, if that's okay.
The world is small. That's what I've learned. The world is small. So I think that many of the people who are listening tonight, many of the people in the audience will know why I came out of teaching, and that's because I was, or I am, clinically extremely vulnerable, and I was told to shield. So told to get out of the classroom, pretty much, not by my school, but that was my choice. And so I began this journey of tutoring online. And I started working with a global company. And within a few weeks, I had fantastic maths class of children. There was one in Poland, one in Tanzania, one in Denmark, one somewhere up north, I think South Shields or something like that. One in Thailand, one in Vietnam. And all these children in this class came with these different experiences of maths. Some had learned the American style of curriculum, some had learned the UK style, others had been homeschooled their entire life. They all came with these different experiences. And yet over 3 or 4 months, we were able to bond and become a community and become that center and find our tribe, find our people with that commonality, with that common thread, and join together to work for that common goal. And that to me is just, that's been fantastic. Ludo, you know my story about the escalators. So I still live in very, very rural Devon. And as a child, I visited my grandparents 2 times a year in Coventry. And one of the most amazing things about that trip was a trip to a department store where we get kitted out in clothes for the next 6 months. And the thing about the department store was it had an escalator. And we didn't have escalators in North Devon, but we had an escalator. So it was one thing that I always looked forward to in this trip. And I was that's a shorthand for I was a bit of a geeky girl. I was an engineering, maths and physics, computing kind of girl. And I think if I had been able to surround myself by that tribe, then I would have perhaps taken a different path in life to the life that I took. But the opportunities for children nowadays, they're a click away from their tribe. It's easy to find the people who you are going to connect with and become a community with. And I think that's probably my biggest learning curve of 2021 and the beginning of 22 is that the world is just a small place.
It is indeed. And if you think I'm going to just move on to Miguel or Michael next, then think again, because you said something really important there, and I'm going to stay on that. Building a community these days is a click away. What does that mean for building community then? Is that good? Is that bad? What are the implications of that, do you think, Sarah?
Well, I've been thinking about this for quite a while, and how the world has changed. if we go back to, someone's going to correct me, there's going to be an English tutor out there who'll correct me, but Tessa the D'Urbervilles, I think it took her 3 weeks to walk from one end of Dorset to the other end of Dorset. And you can feel very alienated and away from your crowd. But now that crowd is instantly there. And I think as well, you know, we look at this, the younger generation, and they're accepting of each other. And they just, the difference isn't a big thing to them anymore. And I'm sure that's because of this, the community that we can create, and we can find, you know, we're not that far away from somebody else who is similar to us anymore. And that's a beautiful experience for, you know, children who are growing up, maybe feeling that otherness, or that difference of not being like their peers around them. So that to me is just a fantastic advantage of being a click away.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that the link is any more tenuous, it's just that our links are now more widespread, isn't it?
Yeah.
Michael, do you share same experience?
I would say very similar to Sarah's. I've always had difficulty with trying to find community. Like, you know, growing up, I was bullied a lot, and just getting out there, trying to find my people was something that was very difficult to do. And in pre-pandemic, like, you know, for tutoring, be it coaching, like it was within, a few blocks of Toronto, and just kind of staying within that very local sphere. And when we got into the pandemic and things moved to online more than ever, I was scared actually when I started doing everything online, because I just felt like, you know, am I going to look ridiculous on camera? Am I going to say the wrong things? Am I going to, you know, is it going to be the wrong time for this, for that? And the biggest lesson I had to learn really was embrace and let go and build your community, because your community, the glass ceilings have been shattered, you know, and just embrace it. And that was a huge journey for me this year, was just being like, you don't have to be perfect, just embrace it, grow it, and be it. And it's been great.
Yes, it has been. It has been very much so, and I think you've been liberated by that, Michael, and being able to find that both locally to you. I know you've built amazing networks with tutors based in and around kind of North America. I say locally to you. That sounds, saying that anyone in North America is local to you is clearly has been said by someone who's not based in America. But you know what I mean. You know, in this new global kind of ecosystem of tutors, you know.
Yeah, and it's
you,
been global. It's been beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Having you introduce us to other North American tutors and tutoring business leaders has been such a pleasure. Miguel, what are your thoughts on reflecting back on 2021 and what successes you had there?
So I think the biggest lesson is that the mold is not a infinite thing anymore. Molds are going to not exist anymore, because the way and the speed that things are moving, it's going to be more and more difficult to put things into molds. So being just a click away, that's breaking the mold in a way that's never been broken. Online tuition, it's a mold that was broken, that no one wanted online tuition, and COVID brought 2030 to 2020 in 24 hours. So I think that in everything we do and whatever career we're in, we can't expect molds to maintain, because they will be broken. Because these 2 years have been such a big milestone in our growth as people and as humans and communities, and I think every facet. I look at me, I was the hotelier. If you told me in 2019, October, when I arrived in the UK, that I was going to be the owner of a tuition agency, I would have laughed in your face. That I would never give away or give up a 30-year career that I really, really, really loved. But there we are. And why is that a fear? And there's various aspects that create that fear. And one of those biggest things is that you are leaving your community. You are leaving that mold that you know. I know how chefs operate. I know how general managers operate. I know how waiters operate. I have no clue. Well, now I do a little bit more. How tutors operate, how schools operate, and what I've realized is that I come from a very closed community, and Sarah says that the world is very small, and you're absolutely right, Sarah. In your sphere of work, that is a very small community. This year is a very small community. I mean, we see faces that we see every now and then. And I think the biggest thing for me was to understand that even when you come from outside, and you put yourself out there and you make yourself vulnerable to situations, that the tribe will bring you in. The tribe will reset you in terms of the path that you need to trail, and make sure that you bring value to the community. And that to me was like really the biggest win for this year, was that I left a very important tribe and community to a new tribe that has accepted me in a way that I had never thought was possible. I mean, 2 years into tuition, and here I am doing a podcast for you. It's crazy stuff, guys. It's awesome. It's wonderful.
Yeah, the second half is going to be about the wild tales from below deck on a cruise ship. So, Michael and Sarah, get your stories in now. No, very much, Miguel. It's such it's been so invigorating to hear you talk about what you've learned coming into education, because for Michael and Sarah, that's less of a reality, that they were in terms of their professional lives, they were at least kind of born into it. But so turning to that and seeing Michael and Sarah being in education for so long, and now seeing this, how do you begin to move on? How do you begin to have to deal with the new normal, as it were, for education? Has that been tricky? What are you looking forward to in 2022? Now that we know that's the case, as Miguel said, moving from 2020 to 2050 in 24 hours.
Well, I part of the reason why I feel that I've come so far in 2021 is Miguel, because we work in the business, the business tutoring hub together, and we come from these, well, yeah, Miguel, yeah, straight back at you, but we come from these very opposite sides of a sphere. And I may know a lot about education, but I know very little about business. And I think us two working together in the business of tutoring hub has just been fantastic. It's been fantastic for our community, but it's been fantastic behind the scenes as well, because what you community guys don't know is that Miguel and I spend at least an hour a week chatting over our problems with each other and where we need to go next, and getting advice off each other, and it's just been fantastic. So more of that for 22, please, Miguel.
I'm there.
And Michael, how does the past kind of year or so turn into the next year or so? How does the past translate to the future in your tutoring experience?
Well, I think it's onward and upward. I think just continuing to connect with people across the globe, and continue to coach and tutor, and just continue to connect and build and network and build community. So it's been amazing. And 2021, I know it's been rough with with COVID and various things, obviously other things going on around the world, but that has been one of the silver linings, has been being able to reach out to so many people, and vice versa, have people reach back and build that community.
So can I push you a little further on that? What do you see as some of the trends or patterns that will develop in building community and in, looking ahead, looking into 2022 and beyond? What do you think may emerge as new ways that we find community or new ways to build community?
I think it's part of it might be based on, I think with the software, as that continues to evolve, I think there's going to be new ways to communicate. They're going to be upgrading more effective ways for people to connect with one another. And I also feel that we as community, we're just going to continue to find other online avenues and groups, and it's just going to explode. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I think for kids as well, there's going to be more support groups out there for children as well, that they can build their communities and we can come and help out. I know a global tutoring agency right now is doing support groups for children all over the world. And like, I think that's going to take off, especially that there's such a need and a yearning for connection right now and connectivity. And so, yeah, I think that's the route we're going.
Do you think there may even be more of a yearning for connection and connectivity now that we've kind of dipped our toe into how to communicate and connect online? Do you think that's only going to grow, or are we going to kind of go back to living in our local kind of geographical spheres?
No, I think we're currently this. I think this is going to be the way it is. I think it's going to be this in addition to being local, but I think this part won't leave, because it's been such, I think for majority of people, it's been such an enriching experience. Why take it away?
So Sarah, is there anything that you've taken from how to grow your business online that you could give back to how to grow your business kind of locally, or you yourself and Elizabeth? Is there anything you've learned that you feel we could transfer
to growing a local business? Yeah, I think that just being out there with your voice, once you're out there with your voice in front of the world, being in the local town doesn't sound so scary. So I think being out there with your voice and being and having made those connections that I've made, they're really powerful. There's a lot of people here who I feel quite privileged to be part of the community that we've created. And was it Sharon today who was talking about the tube of toothpaste? And she was saying that once you've squeezed that toothpaste out, it's not going back in the tube. It's not going back in the tube. And I think we've got to say that here, haven't we? With the online way that we're working, we've squeezed that tube and it's not going back in. It's staying out. We've all found new ways to connect. And I think that's made us stronger people as well. And so with that stronger voice going out to a local community, yeah, and I think that would be for all of the people. I know, Miguel, when we got together for the Business of Tutoring Hub, we wanted to, it was Ubuntu, wasn't it? And it was all boats rise with the tide. And I think amongst our group, we have got a lot of boats rising, and a lot of people growing in business and as people as well. And that's just a fantastic thing to be part of. So I think with that stronger voice, yeah, it's more confidence to go out in that local community as well.
It's more confidence to take that toothpaste and just smear it all over the bathroom, all over your teeth, all over your face, anyway, as long as it doesn't go back in. Yeah, I really wholeheartedly agree. Miguel, what insights can you provide to that and your communities, your local communities?
Yeah, so I think I'm still very much old school, and being a hotelier, I love being with people. And being with people, I don't think there's a difference being with people in person and being with someone online. This, to me, there's no difference really, other than I can't smell the beautiful perfume that Sarah's using. It's those little nuances that we lose that could make the experience a little bit more enriching. But the essence is not lost. I think it's super important that as educators, that we spend time building or investing in our local community. If we are to be true to the sense of community, then our local community is where, we go to the shop and buy bread and milk, and we see that person and we say, how's it going? And there's a relationship that builds. So I focus a lot of my effort in building community. In fact, I want to niche into face-to-face tuition. So I'm kind of going, in a way, opposite direction. And that's just because there's a massive market there, because now everyone's doing online. There's no tutors that want to do face-to-face. There's a massive market for face-to-face. And it's something that I personally believe in the value of that. Doesn't mean that I won't do online tuition, but I think there's something that happens when you're in a room, when it's sharing the same space with humans. I think the insights for the future is that we all have a very big responsibility. My wife is a maths teacher, so I know what she's gone through. She has moments where she doesn't teach in a school anymore, but she doesn't want to go teach in a school anymore. And we hear these stories of how education is broken and how teachers are underappreciated, undervalued, treated as second-class citizens. So the challenge that I talk with the tutors that I interview and bring into my fold is to challenge them to say, right, everyone complains about the system. Our responsibility is that tutors become bigger than the system, and bigger than the system, better than the system, so that we challenge ourselves with the tools that we have to make sure that our children excel, and that, to me, I think, regardless if it's click or knock on door or, whatever the platform, I think that is kind of the biggest responsibility that we have, is to say, as educators, am I bringing value to the communities that I'm in? Because I don't believe in a system that I was in that was toxic. So, and I think that tuition is, I'm going to tell you a story about in the early 1900s, in the cities, your first floor was the most expensive floor. So it was only the rich people that could afford to live on a ground floor in an apartment building, because the poor people lived on the top floors because there was no lift. You had to climb up these stairs. When the elevator was invented, things got turned around, where now your top floors are prime, because you got the beautiful views, you got a machine that takes you up there, and the bottom floors are the cheapest floors. So things change and our world has changed. We just need to be cognizant that within this change, are we bringing value to whatever we do? And I think it's a fine line that educators walk, because we're human. Most of all, we are human.
Seems like a pretty good way to bring things to a close here. We're at 9:40 p.m. I'm aware of pressures of staying up too late, and also of listeners' attention spans. But Miguel, that's such a strong point to end on. We find ourselves time and again ending discussions and roundtables and podcasts at this festival with that, because with all this talk of tech and streamlining our services, it is clear that the central part of the tutor-student relationship is the human side, is the relationship side, and it feels so important to mention that. So thank you so much, Miguel, for sharing that. And also, I just wanted to pick up on a point that Rachel Dodson made in the chat just now about how the online space seems to be less competitive. There seems to be less competition and more collaboration on the online space. And I wonder, I assume that that's because we've realized over the last kind of couple of years by going online that, you know, that there are enough students, there are enough schools to go around. And perhaps when you are tutoring in a village, there is competition. There are only a limited number of students and schools in the village or a town. And I just think that's such a powerful force that we've been able to achieve, is that by moving online, we've been able to see that exactly that the people around us are not our competitors. They can only enrich us, really, unless they are negative forces. So I'm really glad that even if that's all that's come from this conversation, which it isn't, but if that even was all that had come from our conversation, that's a really, really strong point to end on. So there is final 60 seconds for each of you. I'm going to give you your time to discuss, which is, if I gave each of you a magic wand and you were able to wave it over you and yourself and your life, what would success ideally look like by the end of 2022? Miguel.
You know, I'm always, I don't know, those questions for me are always dangerous because it detracts from my reality of now. And I believe in realities, and I believe in the long game. And I don't know what the end game is yet because I'm still in the game. I'd like to see, you know, value adding to the education wherever I can. I'd like to see that I'm able to share knowledge with the people that work with me, and that takes me to a never-ending destination because I'll never stop working. It's not in me. And that every day that I live, humble, but with fierce ambition. And that's really my goal.
That's a moment to sink in there. Humble with fierce ambition. If that's your goal by the end of 2022, then that would be success for you, Miguel. Thank you so much for that. Sarah?
No, it's similar. It's similar, Miguel. This is success. This journey, this path that I'm walking, this is success. And no, I don't know where it's going, but do I wake up every day and know that I have value to give somebody? Yes. Do I wake up every day and feel good about the person that I am? Yes. Do I wake up every day and know that I'm surrounded by fantastic family, people, cats? Yes, I do, and that is success to me. So I just want to carry on walking down this path, but also heading towards a camper van and a paddleboard. So
nod. Jack Simmons. Sarah Logan, yes. Do you wake up every day surrounded by cats? That's what I heard from your answer. The answer is yes. Michael, you have the closing line then here.
Well, I think just waking up with having gratitude in the attitude, and just feeling great about what I do every day, and the value and what I can give to others, but also what I receive from others, and just continuing to be a lifelong learner and make the best of 2022, and just but also feel good about where things are, and strive, and just all that good stuff.
That's wonderful. Come on, guys. You know what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear you say, 100, 10,000 students tutored by the end of the year. I want to have X number of, no. But the answers you've given are a far greater sign of what your visions are and what your goals are, and why everyone in this room should continue to follow these three through 2022, either through the business of Tutoring Hub, getting to know them personally, or just through Qualified Tutor community. I don't mean to undermine the conversations that I've had with other festival speakers over this festival and the last one, but it is genuinely such a pleasure and a privilege to be sitting here and to be able to speak to people that I know well and with whom I've worked closely on this podcast and at this festival. I truly mean that. That was, for me, a really affirming conversation that we've just had there. And to be able to share that with everyone in this group is also hugely inspiring as well. I hope that these three guests this evening were able to inspire you just a little bit more than they already do. I know some of you work with one or all of these three individuals in some capacity, but do reach out if you don't already, so you can get to know them a little bit more. Tomorrow is our big teaching and learning day that involves everyone here as well. So I do hope to see you tomorrow. We're kicking off at 8:30 a.m. with a CPD accredited workshop from Judy Bryce, but we're going throughout the day until around this time tomorrow as well. That's teaching and learning. And there's also a keynote from our very own Julia Sylvia at 2 p.m. So I would recommend heading over to that one, but there's also a great pre-lunch schedule. So thank you very much, the three of you, for joining us and for contributing your thoughts. Thank you, everyone who is listening as well, for contributing your ideas into the chat. They're always very, very well received. I've been Ludo Miller, the host of the Qualified Tutor podcast. A huge thank you to Miguel de Sousa, Sarah Logan, and Michael Gibben for joining us as speakers, and a good night to everyone here. Goodbye. Cheerio. Thank you very, very much for joining us.